So we know you folks at home have been really enjoying our webcams from both our zoos, especially our penguin cameras. But when it comes to our rockhopper penguins, do you know where they come from, what they do in the wild, whether they even hop on rocks, and what our involvement is in their conservation? Well, don't worry, because in this episode of RZSS Goes Wild, we're going to find out all about it. The rockhopper penguins you'll see on the webcams from Edinburgh Zoo are called northern rockhoppers. So to get the lowdown on what the conservation of these animals involved, I decided to talk to my boss, Dr. Helen Sen, who's head of conservation and science at RZSS, to find out more about them. Hi Helen!
Hi Helen!
Some people won't ever have seen a northern rockhopper penguin before. We know some people have been watching them on our webcams, but for those who haven't seen them, can you describe a little bit what they look like? How are they different from other penguins people might be familiar with?
I think the best way to describe them is they're a kind of small, quite almost grumpy looking penguin sometimes. They've got these really cool yellow eyebrows, which are called supercilium, and they generally look a little bit disgruntled normally, and they're one of the smallest penguins that's out there.
Whereabouts do we find northern rockhopper penguins?
So rockhoppers live a really long way away from Edinburgh, but they do live close to Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, which is the capital of Tristan da Cunha. And one of their major homes is on the Tristan da Cunha archipelago. And they're also found more than 7,000 kilometres away in the Indian Ocean on the islands of Amsterdam and St. Paul.
Just want to interrupt this interview for a second to ask how many of you think penguins are cute, and then how many of those people have ever Googled inside of a penguin's mouth? Because I suggest you do that. It is terrifying. Okay, now back to the penguin facts. The penguins there have suffered really drastic declines since the 1950s, and they're now listed as endangered species. So what's going on there? What's the issue for northern rockhoppers?
Yeah, so like lots of threatened species, there's actually just a lot that we really don't know. The population in the Tristan archipelago declined by at least 2 million pairs since around the 1950s. Likely culprit is climate change, and perhaps the changes that might create in, for example, the ocean currents, and how that could change the food webs, or maybe also how overfishing could be interacting with those factors. And then there's also potentially an issue of disease.
So obviously this is a penguin species that's in trouble. What has our department been doing to help towards northern rockhopper conservation?
RZSS has been involved in the conservation of rockhopper penguins for quite a long time. In 2008, we helped buy a survey boat. In 2017, RZSS brought together researchers and conservationists from across the world, including from Tristan da Cunha and also from France and the UK, who work on rockhoppers across their range, to really come together and think about how best to move forward jointly on conservation for this species. We published that action plan in both English and French because, of course, it's a species that is researched and of interest in a number of different regions.
Okay, so that's kind of what we have done in the past. What are we doing to help northern rockhopper penguins right now?
At the moment, we're collaborating with a whole load of different researchers to understand better the genetics of the northern rockhopper penguin, and we're doing that with our very own RZSS Wild Genes Lab, which is on site at Edinburgh Zoo, and we're trying to look at understanding, using genetics, how those different, quite distant islands are related, and how much gene flow there is between the different populations, because that will help us to understand more about their ecology.
Do we think penguins could be moving that whole 7,000 kilometres between the two?
We don't know. So that's one of the things that we hope to maybe be able to get a bit more of a handle on with this study.
Well, that's great. Thanks so much for giving the folks at home an insight into the amazing conservation work and conservation research that our department is involved in for northern rockhoppers. So next time you're checking out our rockhopper penguins on the zoo webcams, you'll have a little bit more idea of what goes on in their world and the amazing conservation work that RZSS is involved in to try and save this incredible species in the wild.